hippies, Johnny Depp, and the weirdest sort of poetic kind of coincidence that I have ever experienced personally. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we're here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in the poetry discussion playlist here on the channel. A playlist which is now nearing 750 videos strong. The poem in question today, Desiderata, by Max Ehrmann. It reads as such. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial, as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness beyond a wholesome discipline. Be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. There are lots of things to consider with this poem. First off, is this a poem? What is the metaphor? Is a metaphor necessary for poetry? What is the underlying message? We have the message on top of things, that's pretty clear throughout this, but what is underneath these words? One of the things about this poem that is interesting is that it has made such a mark on so many. So many people take this poem, or parts of this poem, I think, more specifically, with them. I mentioned Johnny Depp. This is Jack Sparrow's back tattoo. Do you recognize any of those words? It is as perennial as the years, graceful. Uh, it's this poem. I can't read it, but it is this poem. But do not distress. It's this poem. His back tattoo is this poem. Now, I mentioned a strange coincidence, and it's questionable whether or not this is a poem. If you were to set out and define poetry, something which is particularly tricky, something which is not easy to do. But if you were to set out to define poetry, almost any definition that you came up with would be different from this poem, so long as the definition you have of poetry was useful. If you just said it's words on a page that make me feel a certain way, well, that's fine. It's a terrible definition for poetry. There was a song in 1999 that made people ask the very same types of questions. Is this a song? Now, the weird coincidence is, I want you to listen to this name, Max Ehrmann. Kind of a strange name, right? Max Ehrmann. This song in 1999 was titled Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen. This song was by Baz Luhrmann. When I first found this poem, not the song, the poem, it gave me the weirdest deja vu. Why? Because the song is kind of the same thing as the poem, and their authors are very similarly named, Baz Luhrmann, Max Ehrmann. But here's a taste of this song. Don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long, and in the end, it's only with yourself. Remember compliments you receive, forget the insults. If you succeed in doing this, tell me how. Keep your old love letters, throw away your old bank statements. Don't feel guilty if you don't know what you want to do with your life. It's all the same type of statements that we get from Desiderata. Um, I hesitate to criticize this type of poetry. I think that this type of poetry is really only a central character away, a main character away, a protagonist away from being a Charles Bukowski poem. Bukowski is one of my favorite poets, probably my second favorite poet, to Emily Dickinson, of course, the greatest poet of all time. But I hesitate to criticize poetry like this because I really do think that it is only a central character away from being something like Charles Bukowski. Charles Bukowski often had these seemingly nonsensical poems that do not have a direct line through them, a direct current through the poem itself. But somehow, by the time you got to the very last line of a Bukowski poem, you could always find what that poem was really about. This poem is particularly kind of popular with the hippie types. This poem has lived for 100 years now. I believe 98 years now, to be precise. I think it is credited to Max Ehrmann in 1927. Even there is some... if there are arguments about whether or not this poem is poetry, there are certainly arguments as well about whether or not this is Max Ehrmann's poem. I don't know that any of it's necessary. If this is not Bukowski and there is no central poem or no central character, if this is a collection of loosely tied together truisms, who cares? Right? If you were setting a definition of poetry whereby this poem abides, then I think probably usefulness is part of the definition and authorship likely is not. If you are of the mindset that this is a poem, Your definition of poetry probably is maybe fairly loosey-goosey, but it probably includes something about being useful or emotions or something like that. If that is the case, then I think ownership of the poem certainly is not part of your definition. So I think anyone to whom this poem is a poem, the authorship of this poem is completely irrelevant. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.